Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers Video Forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Chain Drug Review and Mass Market Retailers. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we're delighted to have two of the key executives at the newly minted Haleon. Brian McNamara, Chief Executive Officer of the company, and Lisa Paley, President of the North American operation. Welcome both.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Brian, let me start off with you by asking about the company and its objectives. I mean, you stated that this is a purpose-driven organization to deliver better health every day. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how that purpose is embedded in Haleon.
So our purpose, the way we articulate it, is to deliver better everyday health with humanity. And, you know, I think one of the things, if you think about how this business was formed over 7 years, it was first a joint venture with Novartis and GSK, then a joint venture between that new company and Pfizer. And what we created is a company 100% focused on consumer health and on everyday health. So what I love about our purpose is it's the clear North Star for the organization. And every one of our brands kind of ladders up to it. We're in healthcare, and every one of those brands has a distinct purpose that's related to delivering that healthcare. And then, you know, even in the name of the company, Jeff, Haleon, I mean, you know, we thought deeply about that. And it comes from two words, one, Hale, which is an Old English word for in good health, and Leon, which has Greek roots and it means strength. It's all about in good health and strength. And, you know, the purpose is really starting to get embedded. And maybe I just give you an example. We made a couple of announcements just last week. One of the things that from an ESG perspective, from a social perspective, we're going to stand behind is health inclusivity. Mm-hmm. You know, making healthcare more inclusive, and that's about health accessibility. It's about health literacy. It's about removing bias and prejudice from the healthcare systems. And we did a partnership with the Economist Impact, which is the Health Inclusivity Index. And it basically ranks 40 countries on how inclusive healthcare is in that country, and the role of self-care in that. And it's a platform that now we can work with, you know, governments and countries around the world on the role we can play and the role other companies can play to improve that inclusivity. So it's something that the company has really embraced. And I can start feeling it really be a driver of what we do every day.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa, maybe you could talk a little bit about how the purpose of the company is impacting the way you approach business with retailers here in North America.
Well, we're super excited, actually, how well it does translate across many of our stakeholders. And in fact, you know, we think about like joint impact plans with retailers about how we can go in and improve the healthcare access or diverse, you know, needs that are in many of these different markets and also on the agenda of many of our retail partners. And so we have a lot of collaboration happening in that space. And one example, for example, is with Target. You know, we have a plan where we did some programming in store and really brought to the shopper directly to their access, you know, what it means for everybody to be included in healthcare. And we put that up on in-store end caps, and we partnered with one of our third-party partners that we do remote medical access with, and Target and Haleon and that community all partnered together to make sure that that is getting to all the needs of all the shoppers that these retailers serve. So some really good examples.
Mm-hmm. Brian, back to you. As you noted, you had been part of GlaxoSmithKline. Now you're an independent entity. What opportunities and challenges does that status present?
Yeah, no, great question, Jeff. And I have to say that Lisa can attest to this too. It takes a lot to stand up a new listed company. So it's been quite a journey over the last few years. I'm incredibly proud of what the organization has been able to achieve. And we've really been able to perform through that, which is fantastic. But I think there's a few things, and I think about it more opportunity than challenge, to be honest with you. GSK is a fantastic company and they were a tremendous owner of this business. And we don't actually do those two deals without being part of GSK. But it is a pharma company. And while we're a regulated OTC business, we have an oral health business and a VMS business, we are at our heart a consumer business. And sometimes things like policies and processes and things like that can be less fit for purpose within a pharma company. So the opportunity for us to really drive a culture change, become a more agile company with quicker decision-making, streamlining the way we do work, we think is tremendous opportunities for us. And then back to this, being 100% focused on consumer health. Everybody who's now part of Haleon, all 24,000 employees are focused on that. It's about improving everyday health for consumers. And, in a world with an aging population and emerging middle class and increased pressure on healthcare systems around the world. So what we can do as an independent company for me is it's just tremendous. And it's now for us, it's for the taking for us to go after it. And then just as challenges, listen, we're facing the same challenges everyone else is right now. We are in an incredibly uncertain world. Geopolitical environment is scary in some cases. Obviously, the macroeconomics, inflation like we've never seen before. So, we're dealing with all those challenges along with everybody else. And I have to say, I feel great about the business we're in and the resilience of the portfolio and the resilience of the brands that we have in that kind of environment.
The supply chain has been an issue for most consumer businesses. How normal is it at this point?
I'm not sure I know what normal is anymore. So what I would say is, us along with many of our peers in consumer health, but also in staples, have seen disruptions in supply chain. I think it's a lot better than it was at the height of COVID, let's say, especially when that was an issue of just getting people to be able to come into work and keep them safe, which was a high priority. Now it has a lot to do with what's happening elsewhere in the world. So I'd say it's a lot better than it was at its worst, but we're still in a pretty uncertain environment and supply chains are still being very stretched. And, part of it is demand is quite uneven these days too, where you get just tremendous spikes in demand. If it's because Omicron acts a little more like cold and flu than maybe the previous versions of COVID. So it's a spike in cold and flu, or in our Panadol brand, which is, the biggest systemic analgesic outside of the US on a global basis, or Advil in the US. So, dealing with that is something we're all facing, and it's another place I feel like as an industry we're all in it together here.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa, in the US, how is the supply situation?
Yeah, I think it's going to mirror a lot of what Brian talked about. I think the big thing that I always share is it is a demand and supply situation in the US in particular, because you think about all the healthcare categories a company like Haleon is in, and all the ones that have been impacted by what happened during COVID, not just the things that are directly related, like Brian mentioned, that will travel, and trend like a COVID in cough, cold, flu, for example, but all the behavior adoption that consumers did around their wellness practices, right? So what they do with vitamins and supplements and immunity and all the things, that for us are really affecting the demand side as well as the supply side. So look, we've continued to get better. We've continued to make both foundational investments where we had to increase capacity for the long term, as well as, we've gotten smarter about how we set up our supply network strategy. And we're continuing, to make choices that make sense for the new realities of healthcare. And I think that's one of the things that's helping us guide. And as Brian said, it's a continued journey, but we are seeing, I wouldn't say stabilization yet, but we're getting closer, to those things that we would have known pre-COVID environments, but not quite all the way back to bright.
GSK Consumer Healthcare obviously came together through merger and acquisition. How do you view that M&A for Haleon?
Yeah, well, first of all, because of those two deals and just 50 brand divestments we've done over the last 2 years also, and those were not only growth dilutive assets, but 90% were declining. So I feel like the portfolio is in great shape. And all our commitments externally have been organic. So, and our commitments are very simply 4 to 6% sales growth in the medium term. We feel like we can do that year over the year. This year, we actually raised our guidance at our half year to 6 to 8% growth. Moderate margin expansion, meaning we expect to see the margin increase, but moderately and still give us capacity to invest in the business. High cash flows and cash conversion, which allows us then to pay down our debt, because we did enter the world 4 times levered, and we've committed to be below 3 by the end of 2024. So love what we have. That's our main focus. That said, we have capacity to do M&A over the next 2 years, let's say bolt-on acquisition. We're definitely open, and if the right asset comes along that helps increase our growth profile and is strategically aligned with the business, we're, we want to be a player in that. But the main focus is organic growth, and we don't need to do anything to deliver on our commitments. But we'll have the opportunity to participate if the right thing comes along.
Mm-hmm. Innovation is the key, the lifeblood of any consumer products category. Maybe you guys could comment on the status of your product pipeline, how that looks at this point.
It's a great question, and it's one of my favorite things really to share about, because it's so exciting, and we do innovation so well. We do it well as a market, but we do it really well as Haleon in particular. And whether it's been things like, Sensodyne, where consumers were continuing to want us to look at things that had more natural, clean ingredients. So we did a Sensodyne Nourish launch, for example, in the US, which is a bioactive that really gets at the minerals in the teeth. And it helps still address sensitivity, but with some different types of ingredients. It's also in a recyclable carton, right? So they care about these things that really affect their environment. And that's innovation. We looked at Benefiber, which is really bringing together both pre and probiotics, because how people are treating the gut and the way that they're caring proactively for wanting to feel good on a daily basis, and putting that into an enjoyable form, which consumers love, like a gummy. That combination, makes a lot of sense and is a winning proposition. And then we've also, obviously, we talked about, how important COVID has been and the symptoms around COVID. And this year, you have that triple threat, right? You've got the influenza, you've got the RSV, and you've got the COVID. And so we've also introduced like a maximum strength Theraflu product, which is a multi-symptom reliever. So they can take less medicines and address more of that symptomology. So I think it's, I think we do it across many of the businesses that we're in. We have a lot of winning propositions that we put into the markets, and we partner with the retailers, to do that, as well as really leverage those consumer insights in our communications. We do think there's other areas. We do think as consumers become more integrated around their health, incorporating digital and how they're thinking about their overall self-care needs, we do think that, product plus, we call it, becomes more interesting space as well. And so we're looking at what kind of partnerships, what kind of use of data, and what kind of digital aids, are going to make sense in the healthcare space. So we're looking at some of those. And we're looking for, inspiration in the way that we're going through different channels, So we're doing, some experimenting with some things in DTC. We get new insights from that. And so we'll leverage those insights differently than to bring things that we learn maybe on a small scale and bring them into the mass market. One example is, we have a lot of chapstick flavors, but the one that had all this pent up demand based on what we learned through our DTC model was green apple. And so we brought green apple back in and put it back in the retailers, and, the thing's been a great success. So I think, innovation, we look at it both product plus, and I think the commercial innovation that we need to be responsible for. And we're a big company in the market, so a lot of people are counting on us to bring that innovation forward.
Thanks, Lisa. Look forward to continuing the discussion with you and Brian next week.